This is my favorite book of all time. This is what I will give my son someday whenever I am long gone, and I've held on to it since it came out in 2013. So I'm going to tell you why in this video you need to go get your hands on this book. This is the ultimate book, whether it's just figuring out cool things that you should buy. I mean, this book covers everything. Just look at some of the examples on the back of the book. If you want to raise backyard chickens, if you want to 3D print, if you want to buy a car, run for local office, if you want to troubleshoot systems, survive in the woods, establish a foundation, there's so many different things that this book covers. Right now what we're going to do is we're going to cut to Kevin Kelly to give a proper introduction on how he suggests you use this book. But I'm going to tell you in this video another way that I have not heard anyone else teach of how to read Cool Tools.
The book begins with a subject guide to what's inside, and then it starts with an introduction to the people who made the book, including an introduction to the tools that we used to make the book itself, and a little short creation myth on where the idea came from, and an FAQ in case you want to know why we do things. After that, I begin with this idea that you don't need to buy all the tools in this book. You just need to know that these tools exist. And so I talk about general stropping strategies and such things as the best warranties in the world, and a review of the sites that review tools. It's kind of meta, I know. The main point is that this is crammed with all kinds of things, from how to build a log cabin, print 3D objects, win a fight, grow mushrooms, run for a local office, work at home, put on a house concert, heat with wood, troubleshoot, start a startup. It's full of all kinds of things, and in the back is an index and a table of contents, but the best way to use this is to browse and discover tools you didn't know exist. With the right tool, you can invent new things.
So thanks to Kevin for that introduction. What I'm going to do now is just flip through some of my favorite parts of this book, since he kind of flipped through the whole book. So obviously he talks a little bit about how he made this book and how to use this book. So we'll kind of just gloss through that. But what I want to talk about first is the kits page. I actually bought that Thing-O-Matic from a Make magazine that I found in this book. I didn't know what Make magazine was in college. I found Make magazine in my first MakerBot Thing-O-Matic from Cool Tools. So, I mean, there's just the thing that I love to do, and I still do this, and I've had this book for over 10 years now, is just flip through the pages and to come up with ideas. You don't know what you don't know, and this book allows you to discover new things. For instance, have you ever wanted to just make your own metal shop from scratch? Maybe the apocalypse is coming, maybe it's not. Still, it's pretty freaking cool to be able to know how to build your own working metal shop. And so I found this book on Amazon. It's all 6 of the books bound into one, and it's literally how you build everything from a lathe to a drill press to even how to bend metal. I mean, the whole 9 yards. You can build pretty much anything once you have your own metal shop. And so someday I would love to do a series on the Gendry book series, but that was something I discovered in Cool Tools. Let's move on to something else. What else do we have in store? Cool Tools. It's always an adventure. If you hang out to the end of the video, I'm going to teach you a way to read this book, though, that I've never heard from anyone else. So this is how I also discovered Mouser and found out how to buy electrical components whenever I was trying to make my own custom electronics during my electrical engineering degree in college. I found Make Electronics. I've got the 3rd edition here. I plan on doing an in-depth review of this book, because this to me is the #1 book. If you have never heard of electronics, if you've never gotten started in it, and you don't even know what a resistor or a capacitor or any of the stuff in this picture is, pick up this book. I found this book in Cool Tools. One of my favorite things in Cool Tools are the various books that you find. It is awesome. Like, I have a Fluke multimeter from my dad, who was a master electrician. I've got 3 of them. Another thing that I figured out, oh, Fluke is the good brand. So this is the top brand multimeter to get, whether you're an electrician or an electronics enthusiast. Let's go to the next cool tools. All right, we've got 2 pages on 3D printing. Now, with this said, this is a book that came out in 2013, so it is a little bit aged, but at the same time, so is fine wine. Good books age well, and some of this book has aged well, some of it has not. ShopBot is still a good brand. Where the Thingomatic has been replaced as of 2024 by Bamboo Labs and Prusa, along with some other brands. I won't name drop all of them. But still, the concept of 3D printing, and that's the thing to keep in mind with this, the concepts, the tools, learning what you don't know. That to me is one of the most important things you can do in life, period. They've got some really good stuff on self-reliance coming up here soon. I actually fell in love with mushrooms from this book, and not just the psychedelic ones, although I do have a sister that lives in Amsterdam who's a psychedelic trip guide. Interesting fact about me. So I actually, from reading this, got super interested in mushrooms. I even designed a shipping container in Fusion 360 to be a whole automated farm for growing mushrooms, until I realized how many thousands of pounds of mushrooms I was going to produce and that I would have to sell all of them. And I didn't feel like being a mushroom peddler, although I can really appreciate mushrooms. I've learned about Paul Stamets from digging around in some of these books and some of these resources, although he's not mentioned specifically here. But another thing that I learned from Cool Tools. Oh, here it is. The Growing Gourmet Medicinal Mushrooms book. Paul Stamets is in here. I was just kidding. I have that book. Let me see if I can grab it successfully here. Boom. This is where I learned about Paul Stamets, and really just another fantastic book. It's super in-depth. Maybe a little bit more in depth than the typical person wants to go, but mushrooms are so cool. They do so many different things. Everything in Eastern medicine, from turkey tail, being scientifically proven now to help reduce breast cancer. Paul Stamets has an awesome YouTube video that I can link to in the description that talks about how his mother survived stage 4 breast cancer, anecdotally, with the help of turkey tail mushrooms and a regimen of those. This is a pretty cool page. I love the Hawks Survival Handbook. His laws of survival. The person least likely to survive will be the one left to face surviving. So to all you preppers out there, maybe you'll be alive, maybe you won't, who knows, but never quit. The DIY lumber. My dad had his own log mill on some land that we had in Montgomery County here in Arkansas, and so I'm very familiar with some of the processes to make your own lumber. My dad just got sick of taking logs to somebody else to process and paying them, so he made his own. So this was very reminiscent of my childhood. The solar power was really cool. At one point, I was trying to design my own house and make it solar powered, and so I used some of this along with some other books that I picked up to calculate my own solar requirements to try to power a factory inside of my house. At some point, I will build my own house and would love to have alternative energy, not necessarily just for the environment, more just for independence and being able to not be solely reliant on the grid and its ups and downs, to at least have backups for things, whether that's generators, which is another cool thing coming up here. And like I said, you just get ideas as you flip through these pages. It's like a hands-on internet, and I just love that about this book. We actually have a Murphy bed in our other bedroom. Another discovery from Cool Tools. I didn't know what a Murphy bed was in college. If you want to brew your own alcohol, there's guides to do that. And I think to me, one of the best things about Cool Tools is just learning about good, well-proven resources so you don't waste a ton of time with poor resources. So I wouldn't have the first clue where to start with home brewing, so I would pick up my Cool Tools and go and pick up a book that they recommend. We'll go ahead and flip through quite a bit here and go on to astronomy. I work in the precision optics industry, and I actually got to go to the Grand Canyon where they had a gathering of astronomers, amateur astronomers, and got to look through some pretty cool telescopes. I'm actually from the city of Hot Springs, so the Hot Springs part is pretty cool that there's so many places just out in the wild where you can find hot springs. I actually prefer cold springs, which there's quite a bit of around Hot Springs, Arkansas. If you go into the surrounding Garland County and Montgomery County, you can find ice cold water piping out of the ground, and it is very refreshing to get in cool spring water, especially on a nice hot summer day. Let's see if we can get to this next part that I have earmarked here. Zen and the Art of Motorcycle Maintenance is a pretty cool book. I know that's not the book reference there, but really cool philosophical book about how it's important to understand how things work. It's actually mentioned in this book as one of the books you should read. There's a guide on backpacking. I've always wanted to go out and go backpacking and try ultralight backpacking and take my stab at adventuring out in the wild. I found out about a 3D mouse for doing CAD work from Cool Tools. You can learn how to start a business. I have several of different books. A book that I missed that I didn't mention is 507 Mechanical Movements that I found in Cool Tools. There's a book whenever we get to self-education, if I haven't already missed it. I know I'm coming up on it. Here it is. The Personal MBA by Josh Kaufman. A really good way, if you're in business, to be able to go deeper into business and cover the concepts that you would learn in a traditional MBA, because he's got a book of 100 different books that go more in depth, but it's similar to a Cool Tools, but for business. And it gives highlights of the various topics that you should at least know are a thing, and then where you can go to learn more, should you so choose. Productivity, Getting Things Done, by David Allen. Another good book is 7 Habits of Highly Effective People. 2 solid books. And then books that changed my life. Really good way to be able to pick up some good books that are very deep and profound. And so now we're getting towards the end of the book. So I want to teach you the way, if you've hung in here this long, the other way to read this book. So if you read from front to back, it's a very practical book. If you read from back to front. It is a profound philosophical book. And so this Finite and Infinite Games, great book. Gödel, Escher, and Bach, another fantastic book. And I think a funny book that actually allows it to make much more sense would be the Book of Genesis Illustrated. And I love these illustrations. I love the cartoons. And the Dictionary of Symbols, I've got that sitting on my library shelf. The Message is a much easier way to read the Bible from front to back. You know, but it's very introspective. And then, of course, you end up with the really important stuff like psychedelics and nicotine, because obviously you need your mind to be altered if you chose to read cool tools like The Really Cool People from back to front. And then finally, when you come down, you can take care of your babies. So if you want to mix up how you read Cool Tools, maybe you already have a Cool Tools, maybe you decide to grab a used copy. It's very hard to find these new anymore. I just checked on Amazon. They're over $60 new. They were $40 when they came out. They don't even have any in stock at Amazon, so you got to find them secondhand. But if you ever find a copy of Cool Tools, the physical book, you can get it on Kindle. But man, I mean, this is a huge book. I am a big guy. I am 6'4" and big hands. This is a big book. It's similar in size to the Whole Earth catalog that used to come back out in the day before the internet. So get a copy of Cool Tools, put it on your shelf. You'll be ready for anything. And you can also learn on just about anything. Thank you for hanging out with me, and hopefully you like this book review, and we'll go and do more in the future. Thanks for tuning in.